Hello everybody, I'm Andy Lightbody and welcome to Rocky Mountain TV's Outdoor Adventures. Well, one of the big draws, certainly in the wintertime, if you're not a skier or even if you are a skier and a snowmobiler, is that we've got some of the most fantastic ice fishing in the entire Rocky Mountain region. We've got the Blue Mesa Reservoir, which this year looks like it may do a total freeze-up, which is kind of unusual because it hasn't happened in the last couple of years. We also have Taylor Reservoir. Now, both of these are known fisheries for a good variety of trout species. You've got the brown trouts, you've got the rainbow trouts, and of course you've got the Mackinaws. What we like to
too.
The cuts too. That's right, over on the far side at the Taylor. One of the things that I wanted to tell everybody a little bit about and kind of walk you through is if you're not an ice fisherman, don't be intimidated because there's plenty of places in town that you can get all of the equipment. Mike Holtzmeister is the managing editor for the Gunnison Country Times newspaper and is out here to join us to do a little story about some of the things, everything from ice safety to let's hopefully put a few fish on the ice. One thing everybody really needs to keep in mind, kind of at the very beginning, is ice safety. When you've got hot weather conditions in the daytime where you're getting up into the 30s and the 40s and you've got the sun actually right down on the ice, you can end up with some pretty slushy conditions. What you want to make sure is, for the most part, rule of thumb is a minimum of 6 to 8 inches of ice is the safety factor for going out and walking on it, dragging a sled, taking most of your gear with you. Anything up above about 10 inches then is marginally safe then for a snowmobile. So if you're going to take a lot of gear out with you, take your family, take your friends as we've got here today, make sure that you've got about 10 inches of ice. There's two ways to get through the ice, folks. One of them is with a hand auger like this, and then the other one is with a gas auger. Gunnison Sporting Goods, for those of you that don't have your own auger, rent both these. These are $10 a day, and it's a lot of work. The $20 a day might be the better ticket because it's all gassed up, ready to go, and it's a gas auger. It'll chew through that ice, put a hole down here for you in less than a couple of minutes. The way we're going today, we're sitting on what, Mike? Probably 18 inches?
Something like that, yeah. It feels that way.
It probably feels more like 36, but this is a good size auger, and when you start in and you start going down, you just realize how tough it is. So might want to consider that gas auger. It's probably a pretty good investment, especially if you've got a lot of people and are planning on drilling a lot of holes. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll show you some of what we've been doing here, how thick is the ice around here, and get into some good fishing. Stand by, we'll be right back. Well, after you've got the hole drilled, you're going to definitely need one of these. Now, this is an ice scoop. They come both in metal and they come in plastic. Jenny is my daughter. She's 7.5 years old, and she's been ice fishing with me since she was 3. She's a bigger fanatic about it than I am. What you need to do is start scooping the ice away from the hole, pulling it back a little bit, and make sure that you want to clear the ice out of the hole. One of the problems is that after you've drilled, there's a lot of slush. Get all of the ice out. And part of the reason is that the clearer water will stay open a little bit longer. Make sure that you keep the ice scoops handy. Part of the reason also is that if you get a nice fish on and you've got ice chips down in there and you really start to fight that fish back and forth, it can wear on the line. You don't want any interference. So a couple of dollars invested in a good ice scoop is a pretty smart investment up here. And guaranteed, as cold as it gets up here, even on a gorgeous day like this, you'll use it throughout the day. Yeah, there we go. See, now you got to let it go all the way down to the bottom. Click the bail over now. Click the little black handle. Nope, this thing. There you go. Okay. Now reel in your slack. Reel up a little slack. There you go. A little bit more. A little bit more. Keep going until I tell you. Okay, so now stop right about there. Because see how your line's now a little bit tighter? Okay, and you're right down there on the bottom. That's this handle here. That's what you'll reel on right there. Just like that. Look at this, look at this. Whoa!
Oh yeah.
That's a nice trout.
Big rainbow.
Mac and go all the way, Mac.
Well, obviously, as you can see, we've got some nice rainbows working in the area here. One of the secrets, as I said earlier, is get your line down onto the bottom, bounce it every once in a while. Again, try to get them attracted to come in and take a look and say, hey, what are you offering me this morning? Mike had done is he just set his line down, was helping the kids get their gear all set up, and Cruising Rainbow came in and decided to take a bite.
Almost.
He was lipping it. That's all he was doing. There he is.
Nothing to it. Nice 15-inch rainbow.
Nice. One of the nice things about ice fishing is that you can use just about any sort of equipment that you've got around the house. If you've got the standard rod and reel, you're really set to go. There is, however, some specialized equipment that is being utilized more and more by ice fishermen. One of the reasons is for the short pole, like what we have here, the little shorty rods, is the fact that you want to probably stay pretty close to where the ice hole actually is. When fishing this, what you've got is a technique where you take your lure and your jig or your bait or whatever it is, try to get it down close to the bottom, and then you're going to bounce it. It's called a little tap thing. In the wintertime, when the fish are under the ice, they get pretty lethargic. They really don't want to move too far for food. They're as cold as you are, sometimes even more so. So the idea is that you've got to get down in front of them and simulate something that looks like a wounded fish or looks like a tempting piece of morsel. What Jeffrey is fishing with here is a real light little rod. It's very sensitive tip. You can see when I wiggle it here like this. The idea is to be able to tell if there's a fish just down there, kind of doing the little tap or the little bit of nibble. What I have here is a little bit more stouter rod. This one is really designed more for Mackinac lake trout fishing because they're bigger fish. When you're going after rainbows and browns, anything like this is fine. My kids actually grew up fishing what they call those little kiddie rods, the ones from Walt Disney and made by Zebco. They work great. They're also good for adults to be able to use out here on the ice. What Mike Holtzmeister has got here is a standard bait casting system. It'll work just as well. The thing is, though, is you're standing back farther away from the hole, and when it comes time to set the hook, it may not be as quick as responsive. You may not see the tip of the pole moving as quickly as it actually, should be when you're trying to set the hook and get them through the ice. But if this is all you've got, anything will work great. If you want to get into specialty equipment, stop off and go see Brent Carlson over at Gunnison Sporting Goods. He's got it all. So now what are you doing? Kibitzing, or are you just making us feel bad?
I'm looking good.
Yeah.
This is the standard ice fishing pose. A whole lot of nothing going on. Fish on. Nice. So, you got any old ice fishing stories, Andy?
I've always got an old ice fishing story. Probably is the best is when we were fishing a couple of years ago up at Taylor Reservoir and had gone off after the Mackinacs, and all morning long, nothing. And then we had like two ice holes pretty close together. And first one hooked up, and then the second one hooked up, and what we thought typically is that the Mackinac had come streaking back across and wrapped both lines, because it was almost like one of these, back and forth. I've got him, no, I've got him. I've got him, no, I've got him. And as it turned out, the guy I was fishing with, Matt Riley, ended up pulling up, I guess it was about a almost 32 pounder.
Yeah.
And he fought it for about 40 minutes, and then I fought mine, back and forth. And we know there's some monsters up there at Taylor. I mean, we know that they're 40 pounds plus. But the trick is that when you've got an 8-inch ice hole and you look down and you can see the fish who's down there about 2 feet down, and all you can see is a face.
Yeah.
And it's like too big to get through an 8-inch ice hole. You know you're having a bad hair day. And I hollered to the guys. I said, come and see if you can reach your hand down and grab him. And they looked down there and they went, oh my goodness, got to be a new state record. And the fish looked up at us and said, yeah, I'm a state record. See ya. And the thing about Mackinacs is they'll blow bubbles, and they'll fill up again with water, and then they'll just sink like a submarine. And the idea of being able to turn them around, almost impossible at that point. So he went back down. We fought him again, back and forth. And finally he took off, and I could tell it was one of these bad news things where the line's going to be rubbing up against the ice.
Yep. And
that's it. The thing is that the fish that Matt had caught had an old tube jig stuck in his gill, almost rusted out, big old root beer type thing. So Matt got his fish in. I think it's now mounted and hanging down at Gene Taylor's, but Obviously, big fish, he didn't learn his lesson the first time.
No.
Came back a couple of years later, made the same mistake. This time, ended up on the wall.
Didn't hurt him the first time.
No, it didn't.
Took some extra energy out of him, but he got away. He got away. I went up to 11 Mile Reservoir with the Denver Pike and Muskie Club
Oh, no, that'd be a hoot.
to go pike fishing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, a whole bunch of guys fishing really shallow water bays. You know how the wind always blows in South Park.
Oh, sheesh, yeah.
The ice is just clean. And I drilled my hole and put my tip up in and got another hole and put down a trout rig
Uh-huh.
and was lying on the ice looking down. You know, it's like an aquarium.
Right, looking
Glass
down, yeah,
bottom
exactly.
boat,
Huh?
looking through
Glass
the
bottom
hole,
boat.
Sitting there watching my jig, and the biggest trout I've seen in Colorado, other than up at the Catch and Release, comes swimming into the hole.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
Oh, boy.
Yeah, he's like, oh, what do I do?
Uh-huh.
And looked at the jig and swam off and turned around and came back and inhaled it. And I was so jazzed up, I ripped the line right out of his mouth.
So we talk
It's
about
still
buck fever. We
like-
still have trout
yeah,
fever around here,
yeah.
don't we? Yeah.
Yep, I gave up big game hunting, so I get my trout fever.
Well, the thing is about the ice around here is it's so layered because it heats and cools and heats and cools
Yeah.
that it's really almost hard to be able to even put a blanket over top of you to look down into the hole.
Yep.
I know that when we go out on the Blue Mesa every once in a while, we'll take the ice huts with us, and at just at dusk it seems, or just at dawn in the morning, you can almost see down into it a little bit.
Yep.
And every once in a while you'll catch, looks like a tail or a fin go flipping by. Of course, it's magnified through the ice, so it looks like he's about this big. So it's one of these things that you think Jaws is down there waiting for you. But of course, the other alternative is if you don't have a blanket or you don't have an ice hut to be able to look down on, we've used what they call the AquaView, the underwater viewing system.
I've seen that on InFish.
Oh, I'll tell you. Yeah, we've used them here at RMTV now for about the last 2 years, and it's pretty spectacular when you can
Yeah.
really get up close and personal and watch. Oh, there we go. We just had a hit. I always love it when you can cue the fish that way. Oh!
Advantage.
Good.
Strike one.
Right.
Like
Of course, now if we had the camera down there in the hole next to it, we could see if it was really worthwhile to even mess with.
Yeah.
Those little dink ones we don't want anyway. No, there you go.
Oh.
Mike!
fan of strike two.
Strike two. This time he even
All
ate
right.
the...
What do you think?
I think third strike he ought to be out. Let's put another worm back on. Go back down and get him. Well, we've talked about some of the rods and reels, and one thing we ought to mention too, that if you're going to be rainbow trout fishing, try to keep your line light, probably in that 4 to 6 pound test monofilament range. If you're going to be going after Mackinaws, obviously you're going to probably want a little bit heavier line, maybe in the 8 to 10 class category. And if we have a fish on, we got a fish on right now. For the Mackinaws, you're probably going to go a little bit heavier, 8 to 10 pound test line, somewhere in that category. If you're going after the really big ones, like up at Taylor, like as we know some of the monsters that live out there in the Blue Mesa, you may even want to go 15 to 20 pound test line. But what you're going to do is you're going to fish it a little bit differently. You're going to be fishing it deeper water. Usually what I like to do is start at about 40 feet and work out deeper for the Mackinaws. This is where you need the stouter rod. You're also going to be using what they call gitsets, but they're going to be larger gitsets, and we'll cover those in a few minutes. Usually tipped off with a piece of sucker meat. What we're doing right now is we're going to be going after rainbow trout, brown trout, cutthroats. And what I like to use is the little lead-headed gitsets. Now these are just about 1/8 of an ounce. They're pretty small, but they really work very well. If you go over and you see Gunnison Sporting Goods, you can find that they have what they call the tube jigs in a variety of different colors. There's root beer, there's firecracker, there's fluorescent white, there's purple, there's black and reds. Just about anything is your imagination. If it looks good to you, chances are it may look good to a fish too. But the secret is that if you get out and you're not getting hits on a particular color, you may want to rotate them. That's why I always suggest that you carry a bunch of them with you. And obviously, as we've seen from time to time, you're going to have a certain amount of break-offs. One of the secrets is with the gitset is once you've got it, the tube jig put all together, take one of these little nasty things, the mealworms, give them a squish, put them on there. Now the idea behind that is that it'll put a little extra scent in the water. Again, you want to simulate looking like a deadbait fish, but also by the same token, you want to put the scent in the water so that they've got something to smell. We've just lost another fish, so it's hot. The color right now seems to be working, is what they call the silver firecracker. Again, topped off with a little piece of mealworm is a real good way to go. Now, the other popular thing is that people like to use are what they call the fry bugs or the marabous. This is a feathered lead-headed jig as well. Fish it exactly the same way. Tip it off with a little piece of mealworm. Tip it off with a little piece of night crawler. Get it to the bottom, keep it bouncing, you'll get the fish interested. Oh, this is going to be cute. What are you going to do? I know you're going to ice skate around to all of the various fishing holes, right?
You got to be fast.
I was going to say, you're just not happy catching all of them out of that one single hole. Now you're going to go take everybody else's too, huh? I say multi-recreation oriented here, are we? Well, that's good. As soon as you skate away, I'm going to go cut your line. I'm going to steal that marabou jig of his and put it in my pocket.
Fishing on. This feels like a pretty good trout.
You know, it feels like I'm working with a game hog over here.
Let's see. Come on out of there. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mike, you
that looks like the biggest one of the day.
Why don't you put him back in over here in this hole? Then I can catch him later on, okay? What are you using, Mike?
I got an olive and brown marabou jig.
So you're working the marabous.
With a mealworm on it.
Okay. Now I'm working the silver firecracker. Gets it. And it ain't getsin' it today.
And I'm going to grab a photograph of this trout. It's one of the biggest fish I've caught in a long time.
You know these outdoor riders.
Catching fish like this.
You know these outdoor riders. I know. So he's 4 pounds, and now you're going to make him look like he's 7. Of course, when you read about it in the paper, it's also going to tell you, and I had to fight it for 45 minutes. Yeah, on 2-pound test. Right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's add a little bit more to it here. Nice fish, Mike. Congratulations. Well, as you can see, not a better way to end up a day than one last fish before we wrap it up, and thank everybody for joining us. Nice thing about ice fishing is anybody can do it. You don't have to be the young, the old, the infirmed. Anybody can do it. Mike catches fish. That's proof in the pudding. I'm Andy Lightbody for Rocky Mountain TV. Thanks for joining us.